Our name is Ghosts Want You Dead. When one's mind is possessed by the nightmarish world of man, one might find themselves rushing headlong into the arms of distraction, fantasy, mystery, and whimsy. When those fantasies too become darker and filled with stark visions of violence and menace, one might just take a back seat for this one. Which is to say, I didn't watch these episodes, but I will read along with Matthew. I just don't like Willie or his rapey vibes.
That's funny because the episodes you watched are the ones where he was rapey, and now he's not really in these ones. I am Matthew, she is Rebecca.
That's us.
Let's just jump right into it, shall we?
Sure.
Episode 206. Victoria Winters reminds us that there are a couple of creeps squatting at Collinwood. What the fuck is Liz thinking? In Liz's bedroom, she files her nails absent-mindedly as Vicky asks if it would be okay for her to allow David to choose his own reading material instead of using the textbook that he has advanced beyond. But Liz isn't listening, and Vicky has to repeat herself. Liz just said, "Oh, whatever Vicky thinks is fine." And Liz is stammering and sipping her tea. Vicky begins to leave, but looks back over her shoulder, concerned. She re enters the room and asks Liz if there's anything that she can do for her, as she seems very worried. Liz insists that she's fine. It's Vicky who seems worried. Vicky turns it around on her and says, "No, I'm not worried. I'm frightened." Opening credits.
Liz insists that Vicky has no reason to be afraid, and Vicky shoots back that she can't help it. Liz concedes that perhaps Willie did get a little out of hand. Vicky's like, out of hand? She nearly had to shoot him to get him to back off. Do you hear yourself? Liz asks if Vicky thinks that maybe Carolyn just let herself get more upset than necessary, to which Vicky is like, no, bitch, and neither do you. Liz says, yeah, that's fair. I don't either, but really, I'm just treading water here, trying to get you to shut up about it, lest I admit that I'm being blackmailed for murdering my husband. Vicky gently says that when she said she was frightened, she meant most of all by Mrs. Stoddard's behavior because she feels like she is in some sort of trouble. Liz denies it, and Vicky asks, then what are these creeps even doing here?
Liz repeats that they are friends of hers. Vicky doesn't believe that she'd have friends like that. She does realize she's overstepped as her mother, I mean, employer, starts to crack under the pressure and begins yelling about everybody asking her too many questions. Vicky promises that she'll stop asking those questions, but it's too late, and Liz continues yelling at her for a few minutes before apologizing, saying she's just not herself this morning. Vicky repeats her question, asking if Liz is sure that there isn't anything she can do for her. Liz apologizes again and reassures her that everything is okay. She thanks Vicky for telling her about David's schooling, and Vicky excuses herself, looking upset. Liz also looks upset.
Downstairs, Willie is again fixated on the portrait of Barnabas Collins, which has totally been there this whole time. Also, Willie is now portrayed by a different actor, one we 70s and 80s babies might recognize from approximately 1 million other television shows. Anyway, new Willie, still staring at Barnabas, remarks to Mrs. Johnson, who is cleaning on the stairs, that he saw a dude in New York recently that looked just like this picture. He elaborates that he just means in the way he was dressed. Mrs. Johnson says that unfortunately it takes all kinds.
That did make me laugh.
And New Willie elaborates that the dude he's referring to was a beatnik. And Mrs. Johnson shushes him, saying that he'd better not let Roger hear him saying his ancestors look like beatniks. That's funny.
Willie further says that the beatnik sure didn't have jewels like that. Mrs. Johnson says they should have been left in the ground. He's fishing for the whereabouts of the jewelry in the portrait. Always down to talk shit, Mrs. Johnson is like, of course, these greedy bastards have hoarded all the jewels. He eggs her on, saying, yeah, they probably have, and he bets she's even seen it. But she bursts his bubble, saying, no, she hasn't. She's only heard about a hoard of jewels. She's about to elaborate on the stories that she has heard, but she senses that he's a bit too eager and stops in mid sentence, saying she hasn't heard anything and he ought to get his mind off rings and jewels and such things. Bless her heart, crotchety old Mrs. Johnson stops just short of calling him a faggot. She exits. New Willie talks to himself and grins at the painting of Barnabas.
At the inn in Burke's room, Vicky has stopped by to pick up David's raincoat, which he had left in Burke's car. Vicky is glum and Burke tries to cheer her. He goes on about the fishing trip he took David on. Burke asks what that creep Willie has done, assuming based on her mood. Vicky denies that anything is wrong, but Burke keeps at her until she admits that Carolyn had to threaten Willie with a gun to prevent his raping her. Burke is aghast and insists that they tell Liz, but Vicky explains that Liz knows and all she did was tell Jerry Maguire about it. Burke is very confused. He can't believe that Liz would allow that.
Vicky says that Liz told her maybe they just lead such a sheltered life at Collinwood that they let strangers upset them unduly. Burke is like, that's bullshit, and you know it. And also, here's your coat. We're going right now to talk to Liz about this. Burke is worried for Liz and wants to help. Manslaughter Club is all but forgotten. Vicky brings it up, saying, I thought you and my mom, I mean employer, were enemies. He says, we are, and if anybody does her in, I want it to be me. And he lets a small grin slip. He clearly doesn't mean it. And Liz obviously won him over when she didn't hesitate to turn Roger in after his confession about the manslaughter.
We join Burke, Vicky, and Liz mid confrontation in the drawing room at Collinwood. Liz shouts that she has no intention of continuing this discussion. Besides, Burke, we're enemies. She asks him to leave, but he wants to offer some information. She's not interested, but Vicky insists. Liz is also pissed at Vicky for running her mouth to Burke. Burke explains that he had to drag it out of her, and Vicky also tried to stop him from coming to the house. Liz asks him again to leave, and he won't until he said what he has to say. So she tells him to go ahead and say it. He warns her that there is a very dangerous man living in her house. He's seen it for himself. He shudders to think what might have happened.
Liz is almost amused, saying something to the tune of, that's what you barged your way into my house to say, that you two boys almost had a little scuffle. But Burke insists that this was no ordinary fight and that Willie is dangerous. She tries again to get him to leave. He sort of drops the bravado for a moment and just sincerely, as though he is concerned, asks her what's wrong. that doesn't work, and she says that what's wrong is nosy bitches like him. He offers to help her with whatever is going on, and she reminds him, "Why? Don't you hate me?" He explains to Liz that he doesn't hate her, just her family and everything it represents. And he repeats his offer of help. She insists that she needs no help, only peace and quiet. When Vicky steps away to get Burke's coat, Liz turns on a dime just as she did after yelling at Vicky and sincerely and clearly touched by his offer, thanks Burke for the offer to help. And he is puzzled.
Later, New Willie descends the stairs into the foyer and bumps into Vicky. Then he physically intimidates her, refusing to let her pass, saying he just wanted to apologize, while currently physically intimidating her. She asks again for him to let her pass, and he asks, "What's the rush?" Burke approaches from behind out of the drawing room and says, "I am." Liz joins as the two dudes threaten each other. Liz tries to get Willie to leave, and he tells Burke he's lucky the ladies are here or he'd have been in trouble. Burke grabs him by the collar and pushes him against the clock while Liz and Vicky beg Burke to let him go. He does, but he and New Willie continue to threaten each other. They maintain eye contact as Willie creeps his way slowly upstairs. Burke returns to Liz, like, "Did you see that shit? Are you sure there's nothing I can help you with?" And Liz continues to diminish the situation.
Burke tries to reason with Liz, saying that she has to consider Carolyn and Vicky's safety. He outright asks her what it is that these creeps have on her, and she becomes like a frantic child, sobbing and begging him to stop.
Oh.
He again asks her to let him help. She begs everyone to leave her alone, that she doesn't need any help, and she just keeps repeating that as she walks away. Watching a 57-year-old Joan Bennett so skillfully enact a child's tantrum is unsettling in the same way Betty Davis's Baby Jane is unsettling. Gosh, I love Joan Bennett. Burke and Vicky watch her go, both stunned by and concerned about her seeming mental breakdown. End credits.
Episode 207. Victoria Winters reminds us that the vibe is still very uncomfortable at Collinwood, but something is about to go down at the Blue Whale. At the Blue Whale, Willie and Jerry Maguire are having a drink at the bar, and Willie is pushing for another payout. Jerry reminds him that the reason for the delayed payoff is his stupid rapey antics. Opening credits. Jerry tries to finesse Willie further. Willie continues to ask for money, and Jason gives him what appears to be $1, which Willie isn't impressed with.
Maggie, Joe, and Sam enter and seat themselves at a table. Sam asks who the creeps are, referring to Jerry and Willie, and Maggie explains. Over at the bar, Willie is upset that Joe and the Evanses are looking at and talking about him. Jerry tries to calm Willie down, and Willie goes to put a song on the jukebox. And this is one I don't think we've heard before. Jerry says he's going to try to mend fences with the locals. And Willie says, well, that might work with most of them, but he and Burke Devlin have a hot date. Speaking of, Burke walks in. Jerry tries to hold Willie back as he gets agitated at Burke looking at him. Willie tries to stare Burke down as Jerry begs him to turn away. Eventually, Willie complies, but he tells Jerry that for some people, it's just fate. And I will add that there is a heavy helping of homoeroticism at Burke and Willie's hatred for one another.
Burke joins Joe and the Evanses, and they remark on the trashy crowd tonight. Joe explains about Willie getting fresh with Maggie, and Maggie and Joe wonder why Liz would allow them in the house. Burke explains he is asked and was told to mind his own business. He also explains that he almost beat the tar out of Willie. Maggie gets excited at this, saying that by the way he looked at Willie when he came in, he still might. At the bar, Jerry explains that Burke is a rich ex con that he wants to befriend, and Willie is just tickled that Burke did time. Willie giggles about the show he puts on, his fancy airs, and when he's really just a criminal like them. Maybe they all can be friends after all.
Jerry Maguire approaches Maggie, Joe, and Sam's table, begging pardon for the interruption. He wants to speak privately to Burke, and Burke is vaguely curious, so he agrees. Jerry buys him a drink, and they mosey over to another table. What Jerry wants is to make excuses for Willie, saying he's really a good lad. Burke laughs that he's one of the worst creeps to crawl out of the woodwork in a long time. Jerry says that Burke just doesn't understand him. Burke shoots back that he doesn't want to. He promises to fuck him up if he steps out of line again, and Jerry Maguire sighs. At the bar, Willie is mumbling to himself and then wanders over to Sam and offers to buy him a drink, trying to make friends. Sam agrees, of course. He asks why Willie is being so friendly, and Willie is basically like, "Oh, I'm horrible and therefore lonely." Naturally, Sam is like, "No shit, me too. This could be the beginning of a beautiful relationship." But Willie asks Sam if his beard is real. They chit chat, and it gets increasingly awkward with every sentence. Over at the table, Joe and Maggie are worried about Willie and Sam cozying up. Joe offers to intervene, but Maggie declines.
Back at Burke and Jerry's table, Jerry has been spinning sob stories of Willie's troubled childhood, trying to engender some sympathy. Burke doesn't buy it. He asks Jerry how long they'll be in town and relates that their presence at Collinwood has upset several of his friends. He hints that he and others suspect that Jerry is blackmailing Liz. Jerry feigns ignorance. At the bar, Willie is impressed that Sam is an artist, and he says, "Oh, that must be why you have the beard." And he remarks that all artists are crazy. This is funny, and Willie oversteps insulting Sam's career. Willie wants to know if Sam has any girl models. Joe has to make a phone call, leaving Maggie alone at the table.
At the bar, things have quickly turned sour between Willie and Sam, so Maggie has to intervene. Willie tries to get her to have that drink he wanted to buy her the other night, but surprisingly, she is still not interested. He's offended that it seems like she just didn't want him talking to her dad either, and starts talking mad shit about how he didn't want to talk to that crazy old drunk anyway. Eventually, Burke has to intervene. Burke is like, "You want to talk shit? Try talking shit to me." It's sort of hot in the moment, but more about that later. They threaten each other. Willie begins to growl and taunts Burke about being an ex-con, at which point Burke bitch slaps him twice, back and forth, and Willie stumbles into the bar, shocked, but then quickly recovers and pulls a knife. Maggie screams, and Willie tells Burke, "You're dead, jailbird." They circle one another, and Willie takes a stab at Burke, who disarms him effortlessly. Like, Willie tries to stab him, and he immediately just grabs him by the arm and squeezes until he drops the knife, and then quickly puts him on the floor. Willie does not even get a punch in. Burke taunts him to get up. When he doesn't, Burke tells Sam and Joe to get him out of here. As they do so, Burke warns Jerry Maguire that he'd better get Willie out of town or Burke will be coming after the both of them. Maggie rushes over and asks Burke if he's okay, and he is. He tells Maggie that this has been bound to happen since they met, so that's fun that they both feel the same about each other. Outside, Willie nurses his wounds when Jerry comes out to ask if he's all right. Willie declares that he's going to kill Burke Devlin. Jerry tries to talk him down for a minute and then changes course and says, yeah, you're right. You should get even with Burke Devlin, but not until after we get the money. So, new plan, Willie has to leave town now, but of course he can come back and kill Burke later, just after they get the money. Willie demands money now to flee, so Jerry runs off to fetch some before the end credits. Episode 208. Victoria Winters reminds us that Burke beat Willie's ass last night, but that's old news because now Willie is about to do a robbery. This voiceover is delivered over Willie creeping down the stairs at Collinwood and staring at the jewels in the painting again. You know, the one that's been here this whole time. Sort of match cut to Liz pinning on a great honking jeweled pin onto her dress. Jerry Maguire enters saying that he's come because Mrs. Johnson told him that Liz wanted to talk to him. She informs him that Willie needs to leave the house and the town. Jerry whines that he isn't used to being given orders, but Liz doesn't care. He asks if she heard about Burke and Willie fighting at the bar. She doesn't answer, only saying that Willie can't control himself and she should have thrown him out when he tried to assault Carolyn.
Liz starts to threaten to call the police again, but Jerry surprises her, saying that he agrees with her wholeheartedly and his friendship with Willie has ended. Furthermore, Willie will leave town soon. Opening credits. Liz is like, well, good. There is, however, a caveat. Jerry explains that if Willie is to leave town, he's going to need money to do it. Liz says that she won't be bribed again. He takes mock offense.
Jerry insists that he's just being practical. Willie can't leave town without any money. Liz wants him to leave. She has money, so she should give Willie the money to leave. She can't really argue with this, so she agrees to pay for the bus fare to Bangor. Jerry laughs and insists that Willie really should be compensated for the inconvenience. So Liz catches on and is like, oh, yeah, so a bribe, like I said. Jason asks for $1,000, the equivalent of just shy of $10,000 in today money. Liz refuses, he blackmails, and during this exchange, she drops her fancy jeweled pen, remarking that, oh no, the clasp appears to be broken. He picks it up, remarking on its beauty. She refuses to give him the money and threatens to call the police, blackmail be damned. He counters, saying, okay, what about 500? And he is much more straightforward this time, saying, listen, Willie's not going to leave unless we give him an incentive. And if he doesn't, he'll force us to call the police, which neither of us really wants to do because I'll lose my payday and you'll go to prison. He puts it in business terms and is like, just think of it like a deal. You know, she agrees to pay $500. She passes Willie as she leaves to go get the money. Willie smiles while Liz glares.
Jerry explains to Willie that he's going to get $500 to leave town, but that isn't enough for Willie. They fight. Then Willie notices the broken jeweled pen on the table. He changes his tune, agreeing to leave just after he finishes his coffee. He tries to get Jerry out of the room so he can pocket the brooch. He admires it a bit before doing so and exits. Later in the drawing room, David is reading on the sofa when Liz comes in looking for her emerald and diamond pen. It was a gift from her grandmother on Liz's 18th birthday. Liz realizes what has happened and says, "Never mind, I know where it is."
In the study, Jerry selects a book as Liz enters and asks for her pen back. He doesn't have it. She says that if he doesn't, he damn well knows who does, and if she doesn't get it back right now, she'll call the insurance company, which will send investigators. So Jerry rushes off to take care of it. In the kitchen, he confronts Willie about the pen, and Willie lies. So Jerry orders him to stand up. He refuses, and Jerry leans in and feels his pocket. Jerry threatens cops and investigators, but Willie continues to deny having it. Jerry counts to 5 for him like a child. At the last minute, Willie produces the pen, mourning. I only wanted it because it was so pretty.
Jerry's like, "No, you wanted it because it's very expensive," and tries to school Willie on proper thievery techniques. Willie begs to see the pen again. Jerry relents and then starts to go return it to Liz. Willie begs several times, "Please, just let me touch it."
I giggled like a schoolboy at that. Because, like, do you follow Homo Macabre on Instagram?
Maybe. Yeah, I need to look
It's
up what.
just an account that occasionally reposts vintage gay porn clips, but like funny ones. And
No, I don't
out
think I do.
not the porny parts, just the goofy, poorly acted setups.
Oh, no, that's
And
fun though.
I thought if we crop this at like sternum level, it could be one of those because Jerry Maguire is holding the pin around his waist and Willie is reaching out like, please let me touch it. It was just very funny.
That is pretty good. He wants to touch it. And Jerry complies as Willie reaches out for the pen like Gollum, but with his eyes closed. He intones breathily, "Oh, they're so pretty, jewels are. Sometimes you can tell how pretty they are just by touching them." Goodness. And you don't even have to see them. You just know by touching them how beautiful they are. In his erotic jewel fugue state, he has an epiphany. He recalls the jewels from the portrait.
In the drawing room, Jerry waits for Liz to enter, then pretends to find the pen which he has placed under the table. She's pissed and still wants to call the cops, but he threatens her with prison again, saying prison is a far from pleasant place. And she has a great line, which sadly Mrs. Bennet fumbles, which
Oh,
is the world is a far from pleasant place. I've been locked up here for 18 years. She has a point. So Jerry warns her to think of David and Carolyn and the scandal and how it might affect them, and he appears to win this round. In the study, Willie has taken David up on his offer and enlisted him to educate him about the Collins family history. David brags about his family's wealth and their lineage going all the way back to England and France in the 1700s, which Willie thinks is very fancy. He shows Willie a portrait of his fourth great grandmother, Abigail Collins. David starts to move on to another portrait, but Willie gets a jewelry boner and is like, wait, 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 wait. Tell me about that necklace that lady had on. David says that it was said to be a gift from her husband, but there's a rumor that she actually got the necklace and also a ton of other jewels from pirates. Willie asks where those jewels might be. Have they been sold? And David insists that they'd never, ever sell the Collins jewels. But also, he doesn't know where they are. However, he did hear that one particular ancestor did have a shit ton of jewels buried with her, probably right here in the town of Collinsport, but he isn't sure where. Willie is enraptured. He returns to the foyer to make eyes at Barnabas some more, and he fondles his jewels in the painting as his weird monologue about jewels and not having to see them to know they're beautiful repeats as an internal monologue. The phantom heartbeat starts up again, and the portrait's eyes definitely begin to glow. End credits.
In episode 209, Victoria Winters reminds us that those creeps are still at Collinwood doing blackmail and thievery, but boy, does Willie have it coming.
In the foyer, we see Willie fondling Barnabas's jewels to the sound of a quickening phantom heartbeat, close up on the portrait as the eyes begin to glow. And Willie asks himself out loud, where is that sound coming from? Jerry interrupts his intimate encounter with Barnabas and is like, the fuck are you doing? Willie frantically asks Jerry if he heard that sound. Jerry is like, what sound? And Willie is like, the sound of a heartbeat. Opening credits. Jerry is like, oh, so you've lost your mind then. Jerry calls Willie into the drawing room to talk. Willie backs into the drawing room, still staring at Barnabas. Jerry turns him around, forcing him to pay attention, and repeats that he has to leave today and that Liz is getting him $500 to do it. Willie still wants more. Jerry finesses him some more, like, well, yeah, of course you'll get some more, but after you've left town, I'll send it on to you. Willie agrees too easily, but says, all right, I'll leave in a couple of days. Jerry reminds him that it must be today. Willie insists it has to be a couple of days. Jerry suspects that he has a secret, but Willie denies it. Jerry warns him that he shouldn't steal any more jewels. They're too easy to trace. Vicky interrupts, so Jerry shoos Willie away, urging him to pack. Vicky is excited to hear this and is like, oh, is he leaving? And Jerry confirms that he is. She asks Jerry if he's also leaving, but he says, oh no, I'll be staying on for quite some time. He apologizes for Willie and tries to get her to forgive Willie for orphan reasons. Like, well, you know, he didn't have parents or something. And surely, if anyone can understand, it would be you, orphan. There's some fun foreshadowing here about her being a member of the family. Jerry refers to her as a member of the family, but then she's like, I'm not a member of the family, I work here. And Jerry's like, oh, I mean, you just seem like a member of the family. Like,
Oh,
maybe Jerry might know something about that.
well, that does make sense.
Nothing ever comes of it. And I may just be writing the story for myself, but that's
Oh,
how it read to me.
that's fun though.
When Jerry asks, Vicky agrees that the two of them can be friends.
In the study, Mrs. Johnson catches Willie reading about Naomi Collins and the pirate jewels and amusingly expresses shock that he can read. He questions her about the jewels and she quickly gives the location of Naomi's grave and directions, but then doesn't want to talk about it. She just wants to be sure he puts away the books when he's done. He says he will, but then he doesn't. I also find it funny. I wonder how long they're going to keep Mrs. Johnson as a housekeeper now that manslaughter club and manslaughter spying is no longer required.
Cut to the cemetery. Willie creeps around reading headstones with a flashlight, searching for Naomi Collins when he is startled by our friend Grandpa Graveyard.
Aw,
He's back.
that guy.
Grandpa wants to know what he's doing there, and Willie claims to be a distant Collins relative who has to leave town in the morning but wanted to stop by and pay his respect to his ancestors. Grandpa Graveyard tells him about the Collins tomb, but he is hesitant to direct him to it on account of the fact that it is menaced by an evil force. Naomi's husband started this rumor about the evil force, and nobody has been in since. Willie says that he isn't afraid of ghosts, but Grandpa insists that he should be and should leave the dead in peace. Willie asks Grandpa Graveyard about Naomi in a like, well, tell me some about this ancestor of mine, as if he's really interested. He asks pretty quickly about the jewels, and Grandpa Graveyard vaguely confirms it, like, oh, yeah, they're in there. Willie asks where the tomb is again, and Grandpa says, you just can't go there, especially not at night. So Willie promises that he'll come back in the morning once the sun is up. So Grandpa Graveyard caves immediately and is like, oh, well, in that case, yeah, it's right over there, just right in front of us. See, right over there. He gives one last warning about the monstrously evil force in the tomb. And Willie is like, okay, cool. See you in the morning. Grandpa says, yes, not before morning.
Oh, Grandpa
I
Graveyard.
was very happy to see him again.
I do like him very much. Back in the study at Collinwood, Mrs. Johnson is cleaning up the mess that Willie left. She also explains what Willie was reading and how he drove away in a hurry. Jerry humorously remarks that he's never seen Willie read. Mrs. Johnson gives all the gossip and eventually gets around to the legend of the pirate jewels in the grave. Jerry is clearly like, this fool is trying to go behind my back and get a ton of pirate jewels. At the Collins tomb, Willie tries the door, but Grandpa Graveyard follows him and continues to warn him away. He won't give up. And Willie starts to walk away, but then the heartbeat begins again. He gets agitated when Grandpa Graveyard can't hear the heartbeat. It stops, and Willie says so. Grandpa tells him he imagined it, and he agrees before Grandpa shoos him away again. The heartbeat begins again as we zoom into the tomb door. Theremin sting, but of a different variety this time. End credits.
Episode 210, Victoria Winters, reminds us that Willie is trying to do some grave robbing. He enters the foyer at Collinwood and starts to head upstairs, but Jerry catches him. He needs to talk right now. He demands to know where Willie's been, and he's clearly pretty pissed off. Willie tries to play it cool and deny that anything's going on. Jerry says he knows he's got something going for himself, but Willie insists he has no idea what he's talking about as he grins at the portrait of Barnabas before the opening credits. Jerry demands that Willie look at him while he's talking, and then he physically turns him around to look and growls at him. Willie giggles, asking if he's going to get rough with him.
Oh my.
Willie is very queer coded. Jerry gets threatening. He knows that Willie is up to something, but Willie just continues and continues to deny it. Jerry doesn't buy it, but he does announce that Liz has gone to get the money and she'll be coming in any minute. And Willie must pack at once and he has to leave tonight, not in a couple of days. Willie agrees, and Liz calls Jerry into the drawing room and hands him the money. She asks him to count it, but he declines, saying that he trusts her. And she snaps back that she doesn't trust him, so he needs to count it in front of her. But he doesn't, and she doesn't push it. She wants him to pay Willie off and get him out of the house immediately. And she warns Jerry that there is a limit to how much she'll let him blackmail her.
In a shed, Willie is gathering tools to break into the tomb. He loads up a bag. A shot of ominous clouds gives way to Willie prowling the graveyard again. Better prepared this time, he starts to break into the tomb. Back in the foyer at Collinwood, we see the clock strike 11 p.m. Victoria knocks on the drawing room door. Liz calls to her, bidding her to come in. Vicky remarks that the house is quiet, and Liz answers that Carolyn is out, and they discuss how she's been staying out all of the time because she's scared of Willie. Liz says she's taking care of it, and Willie is leaving. Vicky is relieved and thinks Carolyn will be too. Vicky presses and asks what induced Willie to leave. Vicky tells Liz all about Willie's sudden interest in the Collins family and his whirlwind romance with the portrait of Barnabas. Liz is like, oh, yes, Barnabas. He was a well known fancy man who loved his jewelry.
Back at the tomb, Willie gets the gate open and enters. He shines his flashlight across three sarcophagi, headstones on the wall behind. He inspects the wall looking for Naomi. First Joshua, but then he comes to Naomi and is thrilled. He tries to get into her sarcophagus, but the lid is just too heavy. Frustrated, he returns to his bag of tools for a crowbar, but he still can't get it open. He throws the crowbar down in frustration and looks outside. He seems prepared to give up, but then he sits on Joshua's sarcophagus and lights a cigarette. He tries to sneak up on the lid to Naomi's sarcophagus, thinking it'll open if he surprises it. Finally, he starts to rig up a rope from his bag to the ring in the mouth of an ornamental lion on the wall.
Back in the foyer at Collinwood, Liz asks if Willie has left yet and if he was satisfied with the payoff. Jerry confesses he hasn't given it to him because he can't find him.
When Willie touched the lion on the wall of the tomb, the heartbeat started up again. It stops when he heads for the exit. Experimentally, he moves closer to the wall. He attaches a pulley to the ring in the lion's mouth, attaching the other end to Naomi's sarcophagus, and pulls. Nothing happens. He pulls harder. The lid still doesn't lift. But surprise! The lion is the trigger for a secret door at the rear of the tomb. It opens and the heartbeat starts up louder than ever. Willie creeps into the secret chamber and discovers a regular coffin, but wrapped in chains. He's clearly like, oh, fuck yeah, this must be where the jewels are, and returns to his little bag, fetching a tool to break the chains. The phantom heartbeat continues apace, and Willie begins striking the chains to the offbeats of the heartbeat.
Back at Collinwood, Vicky is working on something in the drawing room, and Jerry joins her, causing her to make a hasty exit. His feelings are hurt, and he's like, I thought we were friends, which she coyly says, I didn't say we weren't. He's looking for Willie, and Vicky explains she saw him leave with a bag earlier. Jerry is perplexed, but resolved that one way or the other, Willie will be out of here tonight. Back in the tomb, Willie has finished removing the chains, and as he touches the coffin lid to open it, the heartbeat stops. He is giddy. He lifts the lid, smiling at the thought of the treasure while also straining with effort. He lifts the lid, his smile growing before turning to horror. A bejeweled hand shoots up from the coffin, framed in a frilly cuff suitable for a very fancy man, sporting a big black ring, just like the one Barnabas wore in his painting. The hand grabs Willie by the throat and squeezes. The score goes bonkers. End credit.
Well, 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 Billy, be careful what you wish for, just like your mama said. You guys, we did it. Thus concludes the run of the beginning episodes. If you're watching on Tubi or Blech Prime, we're on next week to Dark Shadows proper. When I said earlier that it was kind of hot when Burke got all gallant at the bar and was, the only man big and strong enough to stop the creep. But I thought about it for a second and I'm like, oh, yes, Burke Devlin, our hero, sexual assault is only okay when he does it. Remember when he
Yes.
was manhandling and forcing Laura to get intimate with him against her will? And yes, it was an evil immortal bird lady, but no still means no. And
No still means no.
I don't super like Burke is being framed as the heroic rapist beater upper. Again, like I said, it's only okay when he does it.
I don't like that either. I will say that they could have put in the story, and it could be insinuated that he was under bird magic and like love spells gone awry. And they could have even played with that a little bit, but it was the 60s. So they just assumed that, well, he's already banged her before. It's his right as a man. The hypocrisy is pretty glaring there.
We're also going to change up the format next week, transitioning from doing scene by scene breakdowns of each episode. We're going to try approaching our episodes more in a this week on Dark Shadows, and then just describing the events that advanced the plot for that week and any moments that stood out to us. Do you approve of this change? Yes? No? Feel free to chime in, but either way, we're going to try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll return to what we've been doing all along.
As always, this program is brought to you by Amy, Austin, and Jacob. You can join their number over on Ghosts Want Your Money, our humble Patreon, where you can obtain a variety of bonus content and other rewards. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Ghosts Want You Dead. Rate and review and subscribe, or whatever the kids say.
Join us tomorrow for our bonus recap series covering AMC's The Vampire Lestat. If you're into Anne Rice vampires, over on Tome Troop, our pretentiously named book club, which is available at the $10 level on Patreon, we are discussing the Vampire Lestat novel this month.
I'm excited for Hot Vampire Summer.
We need to think of some other hot vampires that we can discuss, or maybe we do. Well, we'll talk about this after we say goodbye.
I think we should do like our top 5 celebrity vampire crushes and just talk about the different vampires we want to bone over the year.
Did we already? Yeah, you already
Yep.
did all the socials and everything. We're hanging up now.
We love you.
I can't find the button. There it is.